already doing deals. Like they're trying to give you a free tire change. They're trying to give you a free car wash and all types of stuff to get out to these games. This is wild. Look at how empty this arena is. Look at how empty it is. The cheapest ticket, $6.
The WNBA Finals were supposed to be the coronation, the ultimate showcase of everything women's basketball had become. It was scripted for high drama, elite talent, roaring sold-out arenas, and a spectacular crescendo to a truly historic season. Instead, it devolved into a quiet, deeply uncomfortable, and public spectacle that exposed a chilling and undeniable truth. Without Caitlin Clark, the WNBA has no pulse. When superstars Aja Wilson and Diana Taurasi walked onto the court, not to the sound of a deafening roar, but to the sight of vast, half-empty arenas with tickets reportedly selling for as low as $6, the realization hit with more brutal force than any playoff screen ever could. This was not a championship celebration. It was a public funeral for the hype, a stark and brutal confirmation of the one fact the league had refused to accept. Without Caitlin Clark, the WNBA's newfound relevance simply ceases to exist.
I believe y'all don't care. I think y'all care about the drama around it. I do believe that, but I don't think you care about the events itself. And judging by ticket prices, neither does anybody else.
What should have by all rights been the league's single most glamorous and triumphant moment had instead quickly and awkwardly devolved into a public relations nightmare. The television camera crews could no longer hide the glaring, almost embarrassing patches of empty red seats that dotted the arena. They could not muffle the lonely, echoing dribble of the basketball as it bounced through a cavern of near silence. And they could not ignore the uneasy, almost shell-shocked faces of the players, who were suddenly, and in real time, coming to the brutal understanding that the crowd, the noise, the energy, and all of the momentum had completely and totally disappeared, right along with Caitlin Clark and the Indiana Fever's playoff exit.
WNBA is in a panic right now. The WNBA higher-ups are panicking. They don't know what's going to happen. I already let y'all know. I showed y'all the numbers that they was concerned about the playoff ratings and what they will be for the networks. They're concerned about it already. No Caitlin Clark here to carry everybody. They don't know how these numbers are going to look. Tickets are they're already doing Black Friday sales for playoff tickets. There are teams already doing Black Friday sales
For Aja Wilson and Diana Taurasi, the entire experience was nothing short of a profound and public humiliation. These were supposed to be the self-proclaimed queens of the WNBA, the very players who were proudly carrying the banner for all of women's sports. But instead of the deafening roar of capacity crowds, they were greeted by polite, almost library-like golf claps, and the yawning, cavernous sight of entire sections of unsold seats. The frustration was not just palpable, it was visible. During the pre-game warm-ups, the television cameras caught Aja Wilson just shaking her head, muttering under her breath, "This is the finals?" It was not a statement of arrogance. It was a pure, unfiltered expression of utter and complete disbelief. So we have to ask you, why do you think this year's WNBA Finals was such a complete and total disaster? Let us know your thoughts down in the comments below.
With DeWanna Bonner, Alyssa Thomas, and the Mercury in the finals against Aja Wilson and the Aces, will you be locked in watching this series? ? Yes or no? Hit the poll. 4% of brave souls said yes. 96% said hail to the no.
Meanwhile, Diana Taurasi desperately tried to keep her game face on, but her raw, unfiltered post-game interviews told the entire unvarnished story. "You work your whole life for this," she said, her voice tight with a barely contained frustration. "You want to feel the energy, the love, the fans, but look around." And she was not wrong. Even with all of the championship banners hanging overhead, the entire arena just felt completely and utterly hollow. The WNBA's single biggest night of the year had the anemic, almost library-like vibe of a meaningless preseason scrimmage.
If ever there was proof that the Caitlin Clark fans / Fever fans are now the overwhelming majority of the fandom, look at ticket prices for finals games.
for WNBA Finals games, no less. On paper, this championship matchup had everything a league could possibly want: reigning MVPs, established, Hall of Fame-bound stars, and a host of compelling playoff storylines. But without the electrifying presence of the Indiana Fever, and more specifically Caitlin Clark, it all just fell completely and utterly flat. The massive season-long buzz that had carried the entire league all summer had, in an instant, completely and totally evaporated overnight. And when the fans then checked Ticketmaster and saw the ticket prices for the WNBA Finals dropping to single digits as low as $6 a seat, it just served as the final damning confirmation of what everyone had already suspected. Without Caitlin Clark, almost nobody cared.
So now everyone has to get their numbers on their own. We saw Caitlin Clark bring in a whopping 1.8 million viewers for her first playoff game versus the Connecticut Sun last season. That was more than all of the other playoff games that was played that day combined. More than all of the other playoff games played that day combined.
A'ja Wilson, who is usually the very picture of unshakable confidence, looked visibly and publicly shaken. For years, she has been the undisputed face of the WNBA establishment, a player who has been lavished with praise by the media, and who has been relentlessly marketed as the league's gold standard. But now, a harsh and undeniable truth had become completely and totally unavoidable. Caitlin Clark's sudden departure from the playoffs had just exposed exactly how much of the league's newfound fragile popularity had revolved entirely around her. For A'ja Wilson, these WNBA Finals felt less like a reward and more like a brutal, public reality check. And of course, social media immediately and mercilessly began to roast the league. $6? One fan wrote, "That's not a finals ticket, that's a parking fee." Another fan then posted a video of the near-empty arena with the simple, brutal caption, "You chased away the star who filled every seat. Now enjoy the echo." And that video went viral within hours, racking up more views than the WNBA's own official finals highlight reel.
Last year, the cheapest ticket available to see the Indiana Fever at the Connecticut Sun in the first round of the 2024 WNBA playoffs, $133. Let's just say it's not near that expensive this year. It's not. So right there, Indiana Fever just had Caitlin Clark cut a WWE promo.
And inside those locker rooms, the simmering frustration was now curdling into raw, unfiltered anger. Afogsuasup and Diana Taurasi were not just upset about the dismal attendance, they felt genuinely and profoundly betrayed. The league had promised them growth, it had promised them exposure, and it had promised them bigger, more passionate crowds. But as it turned out, those crowds had not come for them. They had come for Caitlin Clark. She was the draw. She was the storyline. She was the phenomenon, and without her, all of the air had been let out of the balloon. It's like nobody's watching. Afogsuasup was forced to admit after Game 1, her voice audibly and visibly deflated. And she was absolutely right. The television ratings for the WNBA Finals had dropped by nearly 50% when compared to the semifinals that had featured Caitlin Clark and the Indiana Fever. The video clips that used to completely dominate social media were now barely even making the trending page. And the ESPN segments that had once so meticulously dissected every single one of Caitlin Clark's assists were now suddenly being replaced by reruns of tired off-season NFL debates. The spotlight had officially moved on, and the WNBA Finals were now stuck in the dark.
Guys, if the Fever and Caitlin Clark was playing in a finals game, let's say against the Mercury, with all that drama around there, would there be a single ticket less than $300? Now, honestly, a single ticket less than $300. I don't think so. I think you'd have courtside seats go for $5,000. If Caitlin Clark was playing, if she was in these finals along with the Fever.
Diana Taurasi's bitter post-game comments then hit even harder. "It's disrespectful," she snapped at the reporters. "We play hard. We deserve packed arenas." And while those quotes did spread like wildfire across the internet, and while some people did sympathize with her frustration, a great many others called it what it was: karma. "You mocked the player who brought all the new fans." One particularly viral reply read, "And now you're wondering where everyone went. The internet did not pull pull any punches, and neither did the fans. They remembered all too well how, for the entire season, a contingent of veteran players, including Aja Wilson and the legendary Cheryl Swoops, had all taken their own petty digs at Caitlin Clark, questioning her hype, dismissing her impact, and even at times suggesting that the new fans were only watching because she was white. And now, as Aja Wilson and Diana Taurasi looked out over the vast empty rows of seats, those very same fans were seeing a moment of pure unadulterated poetic justice. The very same players who had spent months downplaying Caitlin Clark's immense influence were now learning firsthand, and in a very public and humiliating way, just what the league looked like without her.
But I don't think all of us were expecting the entire viewership of the entire WNBA to be down. And this tweet from Christine Brennan really stuck out to me. She said one player gets injured and more than half the TV audience for the entire league disappears. Has any other athlete ever had that kind of impact on a sport? Golf without Tiger definitely dropped precipitously on occasion, but not like this. This news is alarming for the league, and it's alarming for the league because this is such a crucial year for the WNBA.
The WNBA Finals were supposed to be a showcase of everything women's basketball could be. High drama, elite talent, sold-out arenas, and a crescendo to a historic season. Instead, it became a quiet, uncomfortable reminder that without Caitlin Clark, there is no pulse. When Aja Wilson and Diana Taurasi walked into half-empty arenas with tickets selling for as low as $6, the realization hit harder than any playoff screen. This wasn't a championship celebration, it was a reminder that without Caitlin Clark, there is no WNBA. What should have been the league's most glamorous moment quickly turned awkward. The camera crews couldn't hide the glaring patches of empty red seats, the echoing dribble of the ball bouncing through silence, and the uneasy faces of players who suddenly understood that the crowd, the noise, the energy, the momentum had disappeared with Clark and the Fever's exit. For Aja Wilson and Diana Taurasi, it was humiliating. These were supposed to be the self-proclaimed queens of the WNBA, carrying the banner for women's sports, but instead of roaring crowds, they were greeted by polite golf claps and yawning sections of unsold seats. The frustration was visible. During warm-ups, cameras caught Aja shaking her head, muttering under her breath, "This is the finals." It wasn't arrogance, it was disbelief. Why do you think the finals is a disaster? Let us know down in the comments below. Meanwhile, Taurasi tried to keep her game face, but post-game interviews told the story. "You work your whole life for this," she said, her voice tight. "You want to feel the energy, the love, the fans. But look around." She wasn't wrong. Even with championship banners hanging overhead, the arena felt hollow. The WNBA's biggest night had the vibe of a preseason scrimmage, for finals games, no less. On paper, this finals matchup had everything: reigning MVPs, established stars, playoff storylines. But without the Indiana Fever and Caitlin Clark, it all fell flat. The buzz that had carried the league all summer had evaporated overnight. When fans checked Ticketmaster and saw prices dropping to single digits, $6 a seat, it confirmed what everyone already suspected: nobody cared. Aja Wilson, usually the picture of confidence, looked shaken. For years, she's been the face of the WNBA establishment, praised by media and marketed as the league's gold standard. But the harsh truth was unavoidable. Clark's departure from the playoffs exposed just how much of the league's newfound popularity revolved around her. Wilson's finals felt more like a reality check than a reward. Social media roasted the league within minutes. $6. That's not a finals ticket. That's a parking fee, one fan wrote. Another posted a video of the near-empty arena with the caption, "You chased away the star who filled every seat, now enjoy the echo." It went viral in hours, picking up more views than the official WNBA Finals highlight reel. Inside the locker rooms, frustration turned to anger. Wilson and Taurasi weren't just upset about attendance, they felt betrayed. The league had promised them growth, exposure, and bigger crowds, but those crowds didn't come for them. They came for Caitlin Clark. She was the draw, the storyline, the phenomenon. Without her, the air went out of the balloon. "It's like nobody's watching," Wilson admitted after Game 1, visibly deflated, and she was right. Ratings dropped nearly 50% from the semifinals that featured Clark and the Fever. Clips that used to dominate social media barely made the trending page. ESPN segments that once dissected every Clark assist were suddenly replaced by reruns of off-season NFL debates. The spotlight had moved, and the finals were stuck in the dark. Diana Taurasi's post-game comments hit even harder. "It's disrespectful," she snapped. "We play hard, we deserve packed arenas." The quotes spread like wildfire, but while some sympathized, others called it karma. "You mocked the player who brought the fans," one viral reply read, "and now you're wondering where everyone went." The internet didn't pull punches, and neither did the fans. They remembered how all season long, veterans like Aja Wilson and Cheryl Swoops had taken digs at Caitlin Clark, questioning her hype, dismissing her impact, even suggesting fans were only watching because she was white. Now, as Wilson and Taurasi looked out over rows of empty seats, those same fans saw poetic justice. The players who spent months downplaying Clark's influence were learning firsthand what the league looked like without her. League officials tried damage control. WNBA Commissioner Cathy Engelbert released a bland statement praising the competitive spirit of the finals, but no amount of PR spin could hide the problem. You can't call it growth when your championship tickets cost less than a movie ticket. The optics were devastating. For a league that had bragged about sellouts and record-breaking ratings all year, the finals turnout was a slap of reality. Even players from other teams couldn't help but notice. On social media, one anonymous WNBA player reportedly commented, "It's not the finals, it's open practice with nicer uniforms." That line quickly became a meme. Fans piled on, creating a storm of posts comparing Fever games to the finals. One split-screen image showed a packed Gainbridge Fieldhouse during a regular season Fever game next to a near-empty finals arena. The caption read, "You miss her yet?" Behind the scenes, tension brewed. Multiple insiders claimed that both Aja and Diana privately vented their anger toward the league's executives for the disastrous marketing rollout. They were furious that media coverage had cooled and blamed Engelbert's office for failing to sustain the momentum Clark had generated. But others in the organization whispered a different truth. The backlash wasn't about marketing, it was about ego. All year long, veterans like Wilson and Taurasi resisted the idea that Caitlin Clark had changed the sport. They framed her popularity as temporary, a media-driven circus that would fade. They told fans to respect the pioneers and pay dues. Now, standing in half-filled arenas, they were living proof that it wasn't just hype. It was a movement, and they weren't the ones leading it. The frustration boiled over during the post-game press conference. When asked about the attendance, Wilson tried to stay composed. "We can only control what we do on the court," she said carefully, before adding, "But we deserve more." Taurasi wasn't as restrained. "You fight all year to get here, and it feels like nobody cares," she snapped. The room fell silent. It was raw honesty, but it also exposed how deep the resentment ran. By the next morning, the clips had gone viral. Sports pundits dissected their comments, with most noting the irony that Wilson and Taurasi, two of the most outspoken critics of Clark's media dominance, were now begging for attention. Stephen A. Smith even chimed in, saying, "You can't chase away the person who built the house, then complain nobody's visiting." It was brutal, but accurate. The backlash was immediate. Memes flooded Twitter, showing photos of empty stands with captions like, $6 finals special, buy one, bring everyone. Others photoshopped Wilson standing in an empty arena with the words, "Energy? Never heard of her." Even ESPN's own SportsCenter account subtly leaned into the narrative, posting a highlight of Clark's past Fever playoff game the same night as Game 2 of the finals, a reminder of who really moved the needle. By the time Game 2 rolled around, the situation had gone from embarrassing to catastrophic. The league tried handing out free tickets at local shops, but even that didn't fill the seats. The broadcast feed avoided wide shots entirely, sticking to tight angles that disguised the empty upper decks, but social media saw through it instantly. Fans uploaded panoramic videos of the barren arena, one caption reading, "The finals sponsored by crickets." Even players with no direct stake in the feud started weighing in. Some called for unity. Others quietly admitted what everyone could see. The finals simply lacked the spark Caitlin Clark brought. It was a rare moment of honesty that made Cathy Engelbert's job even harder. The commissioner tried her best to project calm, praising both teams' resilience and leadership, but her words landed with the weight of a deflated basketball. The half-empty stands told a different story. When Engelbert appeared for her pre-game press conference, the tension in the room was almost visible. She opened with canned optimism about historic growth and competitive excellence, but the faces staring back at her said it all. The media wasn't buying it, and neither were the fans watching from home. The first question landed like a punch. "Commissioner, how do you explain record low attendance and declining fan engagement during the finals?" Engelbert froze, then forced a rehearsed smile. Her answer blamed scheduling conflicts and football season. The press wasn't fooled. The follow-up came fast. "Isn't this really about how the league mishandled Caitlin Clark's rise and alienated her fans?" That was the breaking point. Engelbert's expression hardened, her tone clipped. "This isn't about one player," she insisted. "We have incredible talent across the league." But the defensiveness in her voice spoke louder than her words. Within minutes, clips of the exchange were viral. The hashtag #FireEngelbert exploded across social media, turning the commissioner into the face of the WNBA's identity crisis. Fans were done being polite. Aja Wilson and Diana Taurasi suddenly found themselves pulled back into the storm. Engelbert's tone made it sound like she was defending them instead of confronting the problem, and now they were taking the heat too. Even neutral sports analysts, people who had once backed Engelbert, were calling her comments tone deaf. The divide between leadership and the league's new fan base had never been clearer. Inside the arenas, the disconnect was impossible to hide. Cameras kept cutting to empty sections. Broadcasters avoided wide shots altogether. The few fans who did show up were subdued, their energy drowned out by the echo of unfilled seats. It didn't feel like a championship. It felt like a dress rehearsal for a show nobody wanted to see. Engelbert's press conference only deepened the wounds. Her refusal to acknowledge Clark's absence as a factor came across as arrogance, not authority. The headlines wrote themselves: Engelbert melts down, empty seats, empty words, WNBA in crisis. It was no longer speculation. The league's leadership had lost control of the narrative. League officials scrambled to contain the fallout. PR teams drafted bland talking points, social media staff spammed highlight reels, and insiders tried to steer interviews away from the embarrassing attendance numbers. None of it worked. Fans flooded comment sections with side-by-side photos, packed fever games versus empty final seats. You chased away your audience. One viral post read, "Now you're playing for yourselves." Even younger players began speaking privately about the problem. Many were tired of watching veterans act like Clark's success was a threat rather than a gift. Caitlin helped everyone. One anonymously told reporters, "We all got paid more. We all got attention. Why are people mad about that?" That quiet statement said it all. The divide wasn't just between fans and management. It was between the old guard and the new era. Engelbert tried to patch things up by holding an emergency meeting with representatives from both finals teams, urging them to focus on basketball, not narratives. But by then, the story had already escaped her control. ESPN, Fox, and even independent YouTube analysts were dissecting the meltdown, calling it the biggest PR collapse in league history. Meanwhile, the numbers told a brutal truth. Game 1's ratings were barely half of what the Fever's semifinal matchups had drawn. Analysts didn't bother spinning it. "Fans have spoken," one said on a national broadcast. "They care about stories, not slogans. And right now, the WNBA isn't telling a story anyone believes." Inside both locker rooms, players couldn't ignore the data. Lowest finals ratings in a decade blared across headlines. It was demoralizing. Ja Wilson, who had spent her entire career trying to grow the league's audience, reportedly broke down privately. "We did everything right on the court," she told a friend, "but it still feels like nobody cares." Kathy Engelbert, desperate to regain control, held another media briefing. Once again, she tried to talk about positive growth and expanding opportunities, but the reporters weren't interested in buzzwords anymore. The first question cut straight to the point: why are people tuning out? Her answer, "We're still in a great place," was almost tragic in its denial. Because the truth was undeniable. Without Caitlin Clark, the finals were invisible. Every attempt to downplay that fact only made the league seem out of touch. Cameras panned over smiling players, but the wider shots betrayed the truth. Patches of empty seats, a quiet crowd, a championship with no pulse. Game 1 will be remembered not for its winner, but for what it exposed. The WNBA's leadership had spent months trying to prove it didn't need Clark to survive, only to discover that she was the only thing keeping the league thriving. Her presence had been the gravitational pull holding everything together. Once she was gone, the orbit collapsed. By the next morning, sports sites were merciless. Without Caitlin Clark, the WNBA's pulse flatlined, read one headline. Talk shows turned the finals into a case study in mismanagement. "This isn't a basketball problem," a Fox analyst said. "It's an ego problem." Fans agreed. They weren't mad at the players. They were mad at the arrogance that chased their favorite rookie away from the spotlight. On Reddit and X, petitions demanding Engelbert's resignation began circulating, gathering thousands of signatures overnight. "The league forgot who brought us here," one post read. "Now it's paying the price." Sponsors were watching too. Executives from major brands reportedly reached out privately, expressing concern about the optics. "We invested in momentum, not controversy," one representative was quoted as saying. Networks started re-evaluating future broadcast commitments, unsure if the finals could deliver the kind of viewership Caitlin Clark had guaranteed all season. In a last-ditch effort, the WNBA's marketing department floated ideas for a fan appreciation campaign, but by that point it was clear the issue went far deeper than marketing. This wasn't a branding problem, it was a credibility problem. Fans didn't trust the league's leadership anymore. They felt alienated by the players who mocked the very person who brought them into the fold. The finals had become the ultimate cautionary tale. Ja Wilson's anger, Diana Taurasi's disappointment, Engelbert's deflection. They weren't isolated incidents. They were warning signs of a league eating itself from the inside out, because the reality was simple. Fans hadn't abandoned women's basketball. They'd abandoned the attitude surrounding it. They wanted joy, competition, and unity, not bitterness, politics, and pride. Caitlin Clark had had given them a reason to care again. The league squandered it. By week's end, social media had settled on a new slogan, Kathy must go. It wasn't just a jab, it was a demand for accountability. Sponsors whispered about pulling support, networks trimmed coverage hours, and season ticket inquiries slowed to a crawl. The WNBA had dreamed of using these finals to cement its place in mainstream sports culture. Instead, it became a wake-up call. The league could no longer survive on pride or propaganda. It needed humility, honesty, and the courage to rebuild trust. As the lights dimmed on yet another half-empty arena, the message was clear. The WNBA didn't just lose viewership, it lost credibility. And until it learns to embrace the very player who made millions care again, every finals will look the same, a championship played in an echo chamber, begging for an audience that has already moved on. Why do you think the finals is a disaster? Let us know down in the comments below. Like, subscribe, and turn on all notifications so you never miss out. Click the video on the screen, and we will see you in the next one.